Man, good morning. Sleepy day. Sleepy day in San Antonio. I've been busy, man. I have not been on the road because I've been doing this. I've been meeting with some people, trying to set up some future business. And real optimistic about the future of trucking, my future in trucking. Man, it's been a minute since I posted, and looking forward to it. So, a friend of mine, I was out here yesterday working in the yard. A friend of mine was messing with me. He was like, dude, man, you need to comb your hair. He said, you need to comb your hair. I said, man, I just thought to myself, do you have any idea what it takes to be this beautiful? Do you have any idea? I didn't think so. So, let me... Oh my God. It takes a lot to be this beautiful, man. I need to take y'all on out here and get this show on the road. It's been too long since I've been on YouTube and all that. Been too long. So man, I had such a good time on the road. 45 days. I worked 31 of those days. I've been working with this current dispatch company. I'm an independent owner operator. I do not I'm not leased on to anybody, and I have my own authority, obviously. So 74 total days working with this dispatcher, and 60 days were working. In the past 45 days, here we go, there's some numbers. In the past 45 days, I grossed $12,000. And this is symbolic, obviously, because this is my truck. So it is a little truck. I have 3 or 4 other forms of passive income, so I don't do anything to get that money. So from 9 May through 24 June, I traveled almost 9,000 miles. So that's the miles column right there, right next to the net. My expenses obviously were $11,000, almost $12,000. The gross per day was $270 to the truck, and that's all miles. So that's without deadhead. Without deadhead, it was $392. So that number is right below that. The rate for all miles was $1.36. With thanks you guys for checking in. Appreciate y'all. It's $1.36, and for loaded miles is $1.71 a mile. Deadhead. So just scrolling across there. Look at that beautiful guy in the background, man. That thick head of hair. And then the days that I was on, I just shared that. It's 45 days and 31 working days. I got my other days listed up there too with those other runs. Fuel for that particular run was a little over $2,000, and that was 18% of my gross. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I paid dispatch a little over $1,000. There's my truck insurance and truck insurance and truck cost for that time period. Next, I'm going to summarize all all my runs. So that's for the past 74 days. 60 days we're working. Grossed a little over 25,000. My expenses were about 24,000. If you've been paying attention, one of my expenses is listed here as salary. See all those salaries listed? That's an expense. So when you come back over here, I'll just scroll over. You come back all the way over here. Where's it at? Oops. Sorry about that. So when you come back all the way over here, and you see these salaries, that's an expense, and it needs to be listed as an expense because it is. And so 4% profit for everything added up. So all those runs the past 74 days, 4% profit to the company. That's a thin margin. I don't like it. I want it up further, but at these rates, that's about in the spot market. So spot market is simply meaning you go from spot to spot throughout the United States, and you just from Miami to San Diego to Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, where else? Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia. I already said North Carolina, I think. Alabama. Those are all the places I've been. Nashville, Atlanta a few times. So you go from spot to spot, and you and these rates are not, to me, they're pretty low, but it proves to me that my model of trucking works. It works for me. And again, I have a couple of forms of passive income. Some people have to live off trucking, and I couldn't. There's no way I could. It just wouldn't work out. But I planned it this way. So all miles are going to be here $1.51 a mile, and here $1.87 a mile. I'm real happy with that. For now, this is about the worst that I could imagine the rates being. And let's see what else we got. So all the loads that I've taken with this particular broker, I was self-dispatching before, and I grossed a little over 10 grand, and that's not included in these numbers. I was just kind of getting started. And so this dispatcher, I meant, not broker, this dispatcher's been fantastic. Direct Carrier Services Group. They're starting to work with semis now, with dedicated lanes in Texas, and which brings me to the second point, which is check out that fuel cost. So of all my fuel costs, a semi, from my understanding, a semi is going to be north of 25% and typically around 33%. That's my understanding. Please leave comments if you know different. That's outstanding. So I'm really, really happy with what I'm doing in this in the truck. I do want to sort of review real quick. A lot of guys talk about cheap freight. I want to review from this last run. I started in San Antonio, where I live. From this last run, I was hustling my ass off, and my dispatcher, like I said, is fantastic. Direct Carrier Services Group, highly recommended, honest, dependable, resourceful for hot shots. But the rates are this particular rate. It was like $2,300 going to the East Coast. It was like $1.10 on one, $1.20 on the other one, going to almost 1,000 miles. $265 on this one per mile. $325 a mile on this one. $797 a mile on this one. $363 a mile on that one. $1.29 here, and just some other ones thrown in. I didn't do all these just because, I summarized the rates per mile up above $1.67, $1.87, $1.62. So here is the summarized for this 45 days. Yeah, for that 45 days, you got $1.71 loaded and $1.36 with deadhead. Okay, so I don't take cheap freight. It's not recommended. It's not recommended. It's going to put us all out of business. But I did want to cover that and then transition to what my long-term plan is. I've been thinking hard, really, really hard about a semi. And in my view, this is what it would take. So currently, in this current setup, to make $10,000 gross, if I made $10,000 gross, I'll take home about $3,300. Okay, so that's just, I'll take home about $3,300. And how much would it take? My car is like plugged in and running. That's funny. Might need to shut that feature off. But I'll take home about $3,300, and it'll take me about 25 days to get that at these rates. If rates are higher, it would take me a lot less time to do that. I've collected 87% on my accounts receivables, and I'm owed $3,125. I've masked the brokers here. Let me scroll down. So there's the totals for everything that's listed, and then the 87% is what I've collected. I'll have to show how I put together this Excel worksheet, but it's pretty simple and fun. It's kind of like software programming. But so coming back to this, in terms of looking at the future, this whole thing, for the past year, a little over a year, I'm trying to prove to myself that I can run a trucking company. I've proved that to myself. I don't have to prove it anymore. I'm not trying to prove it to anybody else. I'm just showing, kind of my numbers and what's possible with this type of operation. But I've proved it to myself that I can run it in my life circumstances. Okay. Everybody's different. Everybody has different things that they kind of have going on. And I wanted to see whether or not I do have a CDLA. I don't have any restrictions. So I can drive a manual, and I can manual semi tractor, and I can drive a with air brakes. So that's not an issue. The issue would be whether or not it's going to be a good fit for me. And from what I'm calculating, it's, for right now, it's not really a good fit for me. So what I did was just some basic math. I just looked at my fuel cost has only been 20% of gross sales for the past 74 days, 60 days working. The semi truck typically pay 33% of fuel cost expense to gross sales, which would mean that a semi at $225 a mile would produce gross sales of about $30,000, $30,200, which would produce about $9,970 in salary for me. That's a 17% increase. A semi at $3 a mile would produce gross sales of $40,300 to me, getting me about $13,300 in salary. How I figured that out was just that basic little formula. Semi gets about 7 miles per gallon. Some a little bit less, some a little bit more, compared to me at 12 or 11 miles per gallon. So it's 42% higher or 26% higher fuel consumption in a semi, which would mean that it would need to produce $527 per day or $594 per day. Okay, at these rates. I like collecting checks. This is a bunch of them. I have a few more to collect. I like my business. It's going to continue. Do I need a semi? No. Do I want one? Yes. It's complicated. I don't know. I like big trucks. This whole thing started like 2 years ago when I wanted a truck. I just wanted a truck, and got this crazy idea in my head that I wanted to try little trucking. This is not Hotshot Expedited Trucking. My company is named Hotshot, but there's very few loads. There's a few loads. I'd say of all my loads, maybe 10 to 15% are expedited, meaning they pay more because simply because they're expedited, which is Hotshot. That's what a Hotshot does. This is really LTL trucking, partial loads, and it's not necessary to classify it as Hotshot, as a Hotshot. So, in the end, so as far as, I mentioned that to make 10 grand, I need to invest about 6,700 to gross 10 grand. What's happening when that happens is pretty interesting, because you're getting back the money that you already spent plus an extra amount, so an additional 3,300. So if I put in my operational account right now, I've got about 5,100 in there in my company account for operational expenses, and 33% of that, so about 1,700. I have to spend about 1,700 to make another 33% on that. So I'll get all that back at these rates, assuming everything. So I don't know. You also need to be able to run that way, to be able to run for 45 days. To be able to run for 45 days, man, you better be mentally strong. It can't be, you can't need to be home all the time. My kids are, one dude, one of my kids is a pro soccer player in Australia, and the other one is a professional marketing entrepreneur in West Texas. So I don't need to be home. My wife joined me last time, this past, from 9 May to 24 June. She joined me on the East Coast, and we had a great time. So I don't need to be home. I'm home because I want to be home. And if you got little kids, this style of trucking, remember I said my lifestyle, this style of trucking is not for you. A big truck would be a much better option for you, because you can get out and you can get back. I don't need to do that. So the profit margins, I also have a lot of friends that I can stay with. It's mostly because trucking is a very isolating profession, and it's not healthy, man. It's not psychologically healthy to be alone for that amount of time. It's not recommended. especially if if the money's not right at home. I have friends all over the place, and friends and family, especially on the East Coast, and it was a lot of fun, man, getting from Central Texas all the way to the East Coast. And I actually went on this particular trip. I actually went to the East Coast, and then I came back. I actually came back to Texas, and then I went back to the East Coast, and then back to that same area, and then up into Maryland and Pennsylvania, and where I have a whole set of relatives and friends and stuff. So a lot of people are jumping into hotshot trucking, little trucking, because they think that, I don't know. I don't know why they're getting into it, because it's easier to do like I did versus getting a big truck and all the expenses that you're going to incur. But bruh, you better be ready. So I'm gonna keep this pretty short. I want to thank all the people that stopped in to watch. Dave Slaughter, my friend in Georgia, good friend, man. I've known that dude for probably 40 years. Yeah, Dave Slaughter, Jack Brandt, classmate, Ryan Kilborn, Rob Schneider. Just met him. He's a knucklehead. Randy Crawley, cousin. Tony DePrado, classmate. Todd Williams, church family friend. From Maryland. Sue Mendez. Another, she's not a classmate. She was ahead of me in high school. And Andy Burris, trucking friend. And Stan Davis. Stan Davis. Oh my God. Stan Davis is a good friend. So I appreciate y'all watching, and stay tuned for the next episode. Peace.